This episode is rather ironic. This is the last lost episode. But the last episode of FanFic Critic that Meg was the FanFic Critic was actually in 2019, and not this one. I was the FanFic Critic in this episode. And it's ironic because years later, I do become the new FanFic Critic officially. So it's rather ironic. And Meg wasn't even in the entirety of the last episode. I think she was like, maybe, 15 minutes in before I took over? Maybe 20? I'm not sure. I'm trying to erase that bloody story from my mind because it was that... So, this episode is also going to be long, I do apologise. And it's also going to be super obnoxious. I've already watched the footage back, but I am going to obviously be watching it again when I'm editing it. I'm going to try to make it a bit more tolerable. Keyword try. Might have to speed up stuff if you know what I mean. But once when you start watching, you'll understand why it's going to be super obnoxious. So I will see you all in a bit, dearies. Hello, I am, not the FanFic Critic. I don't read it, you don't listen. Well, you will be today, obviously. I'm taking over for the FanFic Critic for the season finale because of, the events that happened in the last episode. The reason why the FanFic Critic did not wake up from being shot with a face pistol was because she has gone into, or went into, a coma. Apparently, back in episode 192, when I had lost my temper with her and shot her multiple times with it, that did some damage that neither of us were aware of. And even though she was only shot once with the face pistol in the last episode, she couldn't handle it. That and she hit the floor pretty hard. So she is home and she is awake. She's not in a coma anymore, but I don't want her reading today's fanfic, and I want her to recover, so she's downstairs watching television. Loud television. So she won't be able to hear what I'm reading. I am risking my own lowering sanity by reading today's fanfic. From what I've heard of this fanfic, called My Inner Life, it is an atrocious fanfic. A very bad fanfic. Too long to read on the show, but I will be reading the atrociously long author's note and the prologue, up until it says honeymoon. The honeymoon or something like that, because the fanfic is way too long to read in its entirety. Let's get started. This is not on a particular website. Well, it's on linksqueen.tripod.com, and I'm assuming it's about Link from the Legend of Zelda. I came prepared for today's episode. I will admit I've become quite the alcoholic. It's probably not something I'm proud of, but well, ever since certain events, like episode 210, to stop myself from being psychotic and killing people that piss me off, I've taken up drinking, which it's probably not healthy for me, but at least I'm not killing anyone. Don't judge me too much, because the FanFic Critic has kind of done the same thing. So, let's get started on today's fanfic by reading this very, very, very long author's note. Author's notes. Hello, thanks for choosing to read my story. As you might know, I have become a major Zelda fan in the last year. Ever since I played OOT, I have grown fond I have grown a full interest in Link. I started to notice that after I got really into it, I found that I have a strange gift. A gift to lucid dream. I started having dreams about Hyrule and about Link. In a lucid dream, you can control your dreams. The dreams became very real, kind of like a second life, and almost every night I would have another, starting from where the last one left off. Even to this day, I still have them. I find that they help me get through life. I know this may sound queer, but for me, the dreams sure help me out. I have shared this story with many other people, and so far, all has liked it. Now, if you read this, it is told from my perspective, or first-person view. I know what first-person is. You will find that it is very detailed, since I remember it all very clearly to this day. The story takes place after OOT. Nothing after that ever happens. No Majora's Masks, no LTTP, or even Oracle of Ages and Seasons. And there is no love relation between Link and Zelda, Link and Ruto, Link and Malon, or Link and Saria. Because of my feelings about Link, the person that he gets involved with in the story is myself, or actually my persona. So it's a self-insert. A persona is, for those of you who need to know, a representation of one's personality. I never would have guessed that. Or in dictionary term is persona, N, in biology, same as person. So for all you future readers, the story is based on Jenna. The car, or cha, that is a representation of my personality. Either way, it's a self-insert fanfiction. I would say this is breaking the rules, but this isn't on fanfiction.net, so technically it's not breaking any rules. It just comes across as creepy. But if you think this might be too queer, then you shouldn't read this. Why do you keep on using such a derogatory term like queer? Use a different term. Do you realize how offensive that is to some people? And this is in all caps. This is not the type of story for those of you who that dislike or cannot handle such material as the context of this story. Why that's in all caps, don't ask. Now this is a normal case. But if you seriously believe you can handle the content of the story, then read on. If you're squeamish about sex, then you should not read this, seeing this story is a real lemon, and there is a lot of that heavily detailed. Between Link and I, that is. Especially during the bonding ceremony. So you're saying that you have these lucid dreams where you can control them. So you're willingly having sex with a fictional, cartoonish-looking character. There's also some blood content and strong adult language, so if that's too much, then you should back down now. Well, I don't believe I have much of a choice. Seeing this was sent my cousin's way, she was going to be forced to read this. Thankfully, as her cousin, I can, if she's not well enough, read these fanfics for her. Thank bloody God. Even if she was well enough, I would probably not let her read this, because after the last fanfic, she almost... Well, I don't want to know what would have happened if I hadn't shot her. Although part of me wishes that I hadn't shot her, because... Well, we would have found out either way. If you're wondering what happened to the face pistol, it's gone for good. I'm not using it anymore. I'll find other methods to knock her out that won't involve putting her in a coma or possibly killing her. Methods that aren't as painful either. I'm going to study the Vulcan pinch. That might work. It worked once. I didn't do it quite right, but if I learn it properly, I should be able to use it to an effect where it won't harm her, just knock her out. If anyone knows any information about the Vulcan pinch, just let me know in the comments below. And we're still reading the author's note, by the way, so let's continue. Now, I have not finished as of yet. I have to catch up. Since the last dream I had was just after Link and I had the blessing ceremony for our twins, our third and fourth kids. Right now, there is about 100-150 PGs worth. I'm expecting to reach at least 300 to 350, probably even more. I will try to update. Update should be one word, not two, as often as possible. I hope that some of you like this. I do not mind sharing it, but please understand that this is very precious to me as long as Link. So like I said, if the content of this story sounds too queer to you, stop using that term, you insensitive piece of crap. Turn back now! But to all who wish to continue, happy reading. Thanks, Link's Queen. Rated R for strong adult language, sex, violence, and blood content. Oh my god. You have got to be kidding me. Everything I'm about to read right now is in all caps. Again, as a final warning, this story contains heavy sex, adult language, and talks about my personal encounter with Link. This story is based on dreams about my life with him. If you find the content of this story to be offensive, queer, or plain out of the wall, then do not read on. I have gotten way too many flames about the content of this story when I have placed several warnings. I will not accept any more flames, rambling, cussings, or excessive lashing out about the character Jenna, or reviews about the content of this story. Follow the above guideline. What? Wait, what? It's okay. Content of this story, excessive lashing out, vicious attacks against my personality, okay. Or non-mature constructive criticism. If it's constructive criticism, whether it's mature or not, it's still constructive criticism. If you're posting a very childish warning like this, and it's quite clear to me that you can't take criticism at all. And I'm sorry, dearie, but I'm entitled to my opinion. And if I think this story is bad, I'm going to tell you that it's bad. And if you don't like it, then don't watch this review. Plain and simple. It's amazing some of the immature idiots my cousin has to deal with when doing this web show. Any review submitted that do not follow the above guidelines will be deleted immediately. Well, good luck deleting this video then. These warnings are not there to look pretty. The authors place warnings for a reason. Well, yes, if your story is technically breaking the rules, so people are entitled to report it. It is to tell you what the content of the story is, so that if the reader finds the content of the story offensive, they will not read on. Well, people are entitled to leave criticism. I don't really want to read this story, but as a critic of my own, even though I'm not an official fanfic critic, but I've done it enough where I think I could take the place of my cousin in the event that something does happen to her, we are entitled to leave our opinion. If you don't like that, then that's your own problem. It just proves to me that you can't take criticism. Grow the fuck up, you immature twat. Many authors have been complaining about unwanted, excessive, violent, and just plain nasty reviews that have been submitted by readers about their stories, causing fanfiction to grant authors the ability to delete unwanted reviews and to block certain readers. I will say this for myself and all the authors on fanfiction. No author twists your arm or holds you at gunpoint or forces you in any way, shape, or form to read their stories. I beg to differ with me and my cousin. Seeing as internet critics, she's entitled to read what's requested to her. All readers have the right to not read a certain story. Yes, and also all readers have the right to express their opinion about a story. That's why they have critics. Critics can warn readers as to why you might not like a story. It's the same with movie critics. If a movie critic picks apart a movie, they might not like it, but some people might. This is just so childish. And why are you writing in all caps? And why do you have it as one huge blob of text? You want to know how hard it is to read when it's one huge blob of text? It is your responsibility to read the warnings and decide for yourself if the context of the story is offensive to you and to make the choice to read on or not. Well, to be quite honest, I find your author's note very offensive and degrading. And it is also the reader's responsibility to take responsibility on how they handle themselves when leaving a review or for an author. And it's also your responsibility to not act like a childish twat when responding to criticism. No wonder people are flaming you and stuff. I'm assuming that this fanfiction used to be on fanfiction.net, and I'm going to assume that the fanfic was taken down for obvious reasons. This person's trying to say that it wasn't a self-insert, but it's quite clear that it is. If you're writing fanfics that are based off of your dreams, where in the dreams, your dreams are lucid and you control what happens in them, it doesn't matter if your character's a persona or not, it's still you, it's still self-insert, it's still against the rules. And even if that's not against the rules, fanfiction.net does not allow excessive violent stories. Meaning, it doesn't allow stories that have a lot of sex and violence in them. Yeah, you can have a little bit of it, but not a lot. Really, if you want to post your story on a fanfiction site, post it on adultfanfiction.net where they're more lenient. Leaving a review that is violent in nature only makes you, the reader, look bad and is very immature. Well, it depends on the review. I know that my cousin can get a little eccentric when she leaves reviews herself, especially when she does her video reviews, but most of the time she doesn't really mean anything by it, unless the author, like you, are acting like an immature twat. Or if the fanfic in question is very, very offensive. Like with that Chewie Usa's 7th birthday, for example, that was about raping a child, and I can't blame her for flipping out with that one. The same with Rini's horrible death. If the author themselves is a horrible person, us the readers are allowed to point it out to them. And trust me, this is still the author's note. Most of this review is probably going to be the bloody author's note. If all of us here are supposed to be adults, well then, let's conduct ourselves like adults and not like little kids. Take your own advice, you bloody hypocrite. I only Telephone, I'll be right back. You are so noisy. And you don't need to be bothering my cousin when she is trying to Hey, don't run away when I'm talking to you. You don't need to be bothering my cousin when she's trying to rest. You've already been fed. I will give you a snack when I'm done doing the review. Okay? Alright. Off you go. Sorry about that. Where were we? Oh yes, a very immature author's note. Let's continue to read. I only expect the violent lashing out and vicious attacks to come from teenagers, not adults. If you people really are adults that are conducting yourselves in manners I described above, you people are really, really scaring me. The author does kind of bring up a good point here, because there have been some people who have left some pretty nasty reviews on some stories that are a little excessive. But then again, some of these authors really don't come across as any better. I shouldn't keep on bringing up this hamster person, seeing my cousin is trying to move on from her, but she was a prime example. She could not take criticism, and she did literally leave my cousin a death threat one time. All because she couldn't take criticism. And supposedly, she's the same age as my cousin. My cousin is 23. So yes, just saying. These authors need to compose themselves in the same way. And also, we don't know if this author is just severely exaggerating the reviews they got. We'll see if they end up making a YouTube profile and start bitching at me for giving their story a bad review, which I can guarantee the review is going to be bad because I can tell just by reading this author's note, this incredibly long and annoying author's note, and the context of the story itself. I know it's going to be bad, and I know I'm going to give it a bad review. Alright, that was the first blob of text for the rest of the author's note. Here's the rest of it, not as big. It's a damn shame to know that there are adults out there who cannot conduct themselves in simplest manners that parents have taught them. Apparently, your parents have never taught you the manners of not to yell. Yelling does not get the point across, it just makes people think you're a bloody moron. Also, leaving malicious reviews is also a sign of low self-esteem. How is that low self-esteem? Well, I don't know. If the person's like bullying, for one thing, I guess I could kind of see that. But I digress. I have low self-esteem. You don't see me being a piece of crap to other people. I think part of it's, low self-esteem and that you're a despicable person. That's why I have no sympathy for people who like to bully others and then try to pull the wah, I had a bad life. Well, get the bloody hell over it. Do you honestly think that being a jerk to someone else is really going to make you a better person? No. If all you people know how to do is to attack someone viciously, it's a sign of selfishness and no respect for oneself. I suggest to all readers who are thinking about leaving a malicious review for me, please get a hobby and learn to control your anger, because you're only hurting yourself. Okay, it's Y-O-U'-R-E, not Y-O-U-R, because your that way is possessive. Not me! Also, leaving a nasty review only makes you look stupid! Not me! And constantly yelling like this makes me look stupid! Not you! Stop bloody yelling! I find it very ridiculous that I have to leave a warning this long, but it's because of the very immature readers that have submitted nasty and childish reviews. Please, read the above context before reading on. Okay, let me give you an example. My cousin, over the years of being the fanfic critic, has gotten many nasty comments said about her. At first she kind of reacted immaturely to them, but at the time she was still young. I think she was like 18 or 19 years old when she started to do this web show thing. She's 23 now. She's going to be turning 24 in October. Although she has done some stupid things in the past, she has been someone who at a point has said fuck it to people who have degraded her. you're going to get people who are not going to like your work. You need to either deal with it and ignore them, or just get the bloody hell off the internet. Reacting like this is not making you look good. And leaving this huge blob of text of you screaming at the reader is not going to win you any sympathy. It's just going to cause people to make fun of you even more. Now, my dear, I will try to be civil and stuff when I leave this review, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be sugarcoating it either. If I don't like the story, I'm going to say it. And if I'm going to call you out on how you're acting, I will. And right now, you're acting like an immature brat. Don't be telling people to act like adults when you yourself cannot act like a bloody adult. Oh crap, damn it. Bad idea. How fucking foam these things get. Well, with all that set aside and after spilling half my drink because it foamed too much, I think it's about time we get on with the actual review of this bloody fanfic. So, let's not waste any time, and let's read. Let's just hope this fanfic is not as bad as the last one. This review is already long and we haven't even read the bloody story yet. Oh, you've got to be kidding me! This is still the bloody author's note! Furthermore, I have realized that the story needs some heavy grammar corrections, and that the plot needs some work. Well, at least you have acknowledged that. I also, under the advertisement of my the advisement of my friend, who just recently completed 2 literature classes, has stated the reasons why people have classified Jenna as a Mary Sue and her character labeled her as flat. She has come to the conclusion that most people do not know or understand Jenna's history, so she has advised me to create an origin story to explain about her history before she met Link. That way she will become more rounded to give people a reason to care about her. It was never my intention to create Jenna as a Mary Sue character, or to make her conceited, because I'm not really like that. Are you sure about that? Because you're kind of coming across that way by that author's note, and the fact that you have this bloody author's note that's longer than the story itself, taking up half the screen. Jenna is a persona character, one that resembles my personality. Well, if she resembles your personality, and if you're making her come across as conceited, something tells me that you're probably conceited. While this story is being told from her perspective, this story is not something that I pulled out of my head like my drawings. It came out of my dreams. That would still be coming out of your head, seeing your dreams come from your bloody head. So I understand that revising the story is going to be hard work and will take time. Since the story is being told in the exact or close to exact order of what happened in the dreams, changing how fast Link and Jenna marry isn't going to be easy. Even changing how fast they have sex and revising the lemon parts also won't be so easy to do. But I'm currently in the process of revising the story. Also, I have received a college grammar book from my friend and will be investing in a beta reader. I'm also considering taking literature classes at JC to help boost my writing skills. But now as I say this, if you people, the reviewers, really have the intentions to help me, please do it positively and like a mature adult. I'm sorry, but not all reviews are going to be positive. I understand that you don't want deconstructive criticism, where it's pretty much the person not really giving you any advice and is just belittling you. And maybe I've kind of done that so far, but that's only because of how you're coming across. But constructive criticism is not always going to be nice. It's not. It really is not. People need to get it out of their heads that whenever you leave criticism, you have to be nice about it. Not necessarily. You don't need to be an utter bitch about it either, but you're not exactly nice about it. I am telling you that it is a proven fact that negative motivation never motivates someone to change. Yes, but it's also a proven fact that if you don't listen to any criticism at all, that's not going to help you change. Even if you don't like what's being said to you, sometimes what's being said, regardless of if it's negative or not, will help you for the best. You need to stop being oblivious to it. You know, it hurt being scolded by Archangel Assassin. It hurt being scolded by my cousin. It even hurt being scolded by Lesbian Jesus for how I acted in episode 192 and whatnot. But it helped me for the better. Ever since then, I think I've controlled my anger. And even though I got a serious lashing from the FanFic Critic when I killed Earl, it helped. Not literal lashing, don't get any ideas, you sickos, but you know what I mean. Alright then. Let's get... oh wait, no, this is still the bloody author's note. It never has and never will. Bullshit. I'm pretty sure your parents have taught you that people only respond positive emotion and not negative. Not necessarily. Sometimes negative, depending on how negative it is, can be helpful. It just depends on how it's given to you. I'm not closed-minded. I never have been. I've always been open to other people's thoughts and opinions. It's when it's done in an inappropriate manner that I turn my nose and look the other way. How much longer is this bloody author's note? People have to understand that when you're an adult, you need to conduct yourself like one and learn how to address other people like one. You cannot act childish when you come across something that you do not approve of. You're only making yourself look bad, and that can affect you later in life. Yes, but if they don't like something, they have the right to express why they don't like something. Does that mean they obsess over it? No, but I don't know. This person is just driving me nuts. I don't know how bad the reviews have gotten for this. All I know is that a lot of people say this is a very awful story. And considering the context of the story is that it's based off of your dreams that you've had of this fictional cartoonish character that you've had sex with and had babies with, and that this persona is practically you, I can understand why people have probably said some harsh things about it. Acting childish and ranting and raving is something I'd expect a little kid to do when he doesn't get his way. When an adult acts childish over stupid things, that's looked down upon and considered to be unhealthy. Not necessarily. I've seen plenty of adults on the internet act very childish, and some of them have been praised for it. And if they're watching this right now, they know very well who they are. I have seen far too many reviews left for me where the reviewers are just ranting and raving like little kids over the story because they do not like it. It is only making them look stupid and is very unhealthy. Yes, but you're coming across as very stupid and unhealthy by ranting and raving over the fact that people have given your story negative reviews. Stop obsessing over it. Just get over the fact that some people are not going to like your review, like your story. And if they're going to be childish about it, so what? Just ignore them. I fear that these people have some serious emotional problems if they get that upset over a story. Well, I fear, my dear, that you have some emotional problems if you're getting this upset over people leaving you bad reviews. I know that sometimes reviews can be harsh, but still, you need to get over it. People in control of their emotions and have also obtained a sort of common sense never let little things get them all riled up. Well, no one's that perfect. It is very sad that one is supposed to be an adult cannot handle them like one. Well, you're not really handling this like an adult, are you? This is what you come across to me. Hey, don't leave negative reviews for my stories. You guys act like children. That's how you're coming across. You're completely contradicting yourself with this bloody author's note. And the fact that I haven't even started to read the fanfic yet because I'm reading your stupid author's note is telling of something. I could just skip the author's note, but I do want the readers and myself, actually, to try to understand you. And so far, you're coming across as a child. One that can't take criticism either. I was never angry with the reviewers not liking my story. I'm sorry, but it comes across that way to me. It's how they handle themselves when leaving me the reviews. Well, then get over it. Stop getting all hot and bothered of how someone else composed themselves and just get over it. It's not worth it. It really is not worth it. And making a huge rant like this is not helping your case. Getting riled up, ranting and raving, screaming and spitting nails all over this story is what caused me to get upset. Not the fact that they actually didn't like it. Well, I find that very hard to believe. I think you were upset that people didn't like it, and that's why you're making this frickin' novel of an author's note. Also, as a side note, I never physically hurt anyone with this story. I got one review said, "Oh God, please stop writing, you're hurting everyone." Now, I want to know where I physically touched that person. They don't necessarily mean you physically hurt them, you bloody idiot. You can hurt someone physically and you can hurt someone emotionally. Yes, it was a little childish of that person to leave that review, but I got what they meant. They were exaggerating. They weren't being serious by saying you were physically hurting them. You were probably, well, maybe they were being slightly serious. Seeing this bloody author's note itself is giving me a bit of a headache and is hurting me emotionally and mentally. So yes, you are kind of hurting people, mentally and stuff by writing stuff like this. Your author's note is so over the top, so extreme, it's not necessary. Get rid of it. You're not helping your case at all. You're just coming across as a whiny little twat. I want to know how I'm twisting anyone's arms to read this. Oh my God, you already said this in the first part of the author's note. Get on with it! I have never done anything of the sort of way, shame or form, in any way, shape or form, and I do not appreciate being accused of that. Can you please move on? If you're emotionally hurt over this, it's your fault, not mine, not necessarily. If you're right, like in the last fanfic review that the FanFic Critic and I did, that story was very emotionally scarring because it was about this lad who first raped an animal-like creature and then raped a woman and then brutally tortured himself. It's not my fault that I got offended by that story. It was the person who wrote it's fault because they purposely wrote it to try to get a reaction. And to top it off, they were being serious about it. If you write something offensive, don't try to pull the, hey, well, it's your fault getting offensive because I'm a fucking idiot. My word. I'm sorry if it did, but I have placed several warnings describing the content of this story, and if you know what it contains, and you do not like this type of material, then why are you reading it? Well, I'm reading it because I am an internet critic, and so is my cousin. And I'm reading it on her behalf, so then she doesn't go insane by reading this piece of... I apologize. I do not appreciate getting accused of other people's actions. Oh, for crying out loud, will you get on with the bloody story? At this rate, this review will only be about the bloody author's note and not the actual fanfic. It's your choice as the reader to read the content of the story, and it's not my fault if it upsets you when you knew from the get-go that it contained. So please, do not flame me about it. Oh, I won't flame you about it. I will give you critique, and if you can't handle the critique, then get the fuck off the internet. I also feel like a school teacher teaching a bunch of little kids. Shut the bloody hell up! My bloody god! I want to read the story! I want to read the bloody story! Stop ranting and raving and move on! Read the bloody story! Tell me your bloody story! Just tell it to me! My bloody god! This is bloody ridiculous! I'm sorry. I need a drink. Let's continue. And I find that wasn't necessary to leave and shouldn't have had to come to this, but it's very hard when your reviewers have forgotten how to conduct themselves like adults. Oh, bloody on. Thankfully, there's only 2 more paragraphs to this bloody author's note, and they're not as long as the last one. If you honestly think that being malicious is a good thing, and that you're not wrong in doing so, well then, you're blinded by your own selfish pride. How are they being selfish? Explain that to me. People with common sense learn how to take responsibility for themselves and are able to admit when they're wrong. Take your own advice. I have found that many of the reviewers that have left me malicious reviews honestly believe that it's appropriate behavior for an adult. Well, it depends on how you're acting. I mean, with how you're acting right now, part of me is beginning to think that they weren't really being malicious. Even the last review that you used as an example wasn't even being that entirely malicious. It wasn't like they were telling you to go and kill yourself. That's malicious. If they're telling you that your story is painful to read, that's being honest. To them, it was painful to read. Respect their opinion. And if these reviews really bother you, then just ignore them. Or don't post your story on the bloody internet. My word, you need to understand that when you post your work on the internet, there's going to be people who are going to tear it apart. You have to deal with that. That's how the internet is. No one's ever going to be satisfied. Doesn't matter what you do to try to please them, they're not going to be satisfied. Grow up. When it really is that they are too self-absorbed in themselves to admit they're wrong. Again, what is with you trying to accuse these people of being selfish? How is leaving a bad review making these people selfish? I don't get that. Again, that results from selfish pride. Oh, shut the fuck up. 1, too scared, wrong 2, it's supposed to have 2 O's, not 1, to admit in front of others that they just might be wrong. Okay, that's a fragment. Also, how can any of you hold any right to call Jenna conceited when in reality you're contradicting yourselves by being conceited as well? How are they being conceited? Are they leaving in their reviews, oh, I'm still wonderful and glorious? If they don't have any of that in their reviews, then they're not being conceited. You can't just accuse people of being conceited just because they left you a bad review. You want to know what? That's making you come across as conceited. My word. Being conceited is again selfish. You know what? Fuck this. I am done reading this bloody author's note. I've read enough of it. Let's read the prologue. Because if I go on anymore reading this author's note, I swear I'm going to go bald by ripping all my hair out of my head. Prologue. Dreams come in many forms. Some good, some bad, some very realistic, even ones that feel very real. A dream may come to us from happy events, or even stem from bad events in our lives. Some come to us as a pleasure dream, and some come as nightmares. Some become vague memories after time, while some stay very rich in our minds. This is a story about a dream I had, a dream that became more dreams, a dream that would end one night, then resume the next. It became like a second life. You already said all of this in your bloody author's note! Ever since I became a Zelda fan, oh my god, I just want to read the bloody story! I just want to read the bloody story! Why are you repeating yourself? You already said this in the author's note, and why are you bloody repeating this? You don't need to repeat it! What's wrong with you? Ever since I became... Oh my god, I already know that you're fascinated in Link. I thought of him as the perfect man. He's a bloody child. One that you could not find in this world. Or maybe you're not looking hard enough. I thought of him as a man that should have been. The more that he attracted my attention, the more I became more attracted to him. I felt like there was a connection between him and me. Then he became a part of me. And after that, I fell deeply in love with him. You're falling in love with a fictional, cartoonish-like character who's a child. I don't care if he becomes older in in some of the games, but that's because he went into a time loop in something. He got aged drastically, so even though he looks 17, he probably still has the has the mindset of a child. And still, 17, you're not an adult yet when you're 17. And seeing you keep on preaching about all the act like an adult thing, I want to assume that you're an adult. I know that may sound queer to you. Why would it sound queer? Why do you keep on using the word queer? Stop using it, it's offensive. But love is a mysterious thing and should not be taken lightly. Love is a very strong emotion, an emotion that should be treasured. Oh, trust me, I know. Love comes from the heart, but when it takes hold, it's got you. I don't quite understand it myself, but I do know that when I first laid eyes upon Link, I fell in love with him. No, that's not love, that's a bloody obsession. You're obsessed, sickly obsessed, with this fictional character. Oh, I'm sorry, am I being too harsh? I must be being incredibly conceited because I'm being too harsh with you. My heart just told me it was right. Told me that he was the one I'd been searching for. Ever since then, I have felt that it was destiny that brought me to him. Even in my mind, it feels the same. I don't consider myself any different from anyone else. Though I have love for someone that is not really there, he will always remain very real to me inside of my heart and in my mind. Even to this day, I still love him. He has kept me very happy. He has made me happy. When I was sad, he has made me stronger about myself. He has even taken care of me in ways that no one else can. How could he? He's a bloody... Even though I have feelings for him, I'm not any different from the rest of you. Yes, you are. You're in love with a bloody, fictional character who is not real. I will always hold him close to me in my heart. He is still on my mind, and I still have dreams. The connection still remains strong, and the dreams very real. I lived an entire life with Link in Hyrule, all stemming from the series of dreams. Dreams that I want to have. Dreams that I make happen. From the first day I met him, from the birth of our first child, to even the days when Link and I prepared our family in the event of that Ganon should return. This book is based off of my inner life. A second life lived far away in a faraway land, in another timeline, in another dimension. A tale of love, passion, desire, and despair. And hope. I enjoyed my inner life. I look forward to going to sleep to it every night. And I look forward to the ones that will come. Because love will never die. Finally. We are finally at the actual bloody story. The beginning. After this bit, I am done. I will never forget the day I met Link. It was a warm spring day. I was on my usual trip back to Hyrule with my wagon of goods to sell in Hyrule Market at the annual Spring Festival, (1). I have been a traveling merchant since I was 14. This is my sixth year returning to Hyrule. The last 2 years I was not able to return when Princess Zelda sent word of an evil presence in Hyrule. Then all contact was lost. For almost 2 years I tried to contact Princess Zelda. Desperately, I kept trying to find out if she was okay. I was never too long without contact with my good friend. Then I was considering to investigate. Then one day should be one word, not a hyphenated word, came in that peace had been restored to Hyrule due to the legendary Hero of Time. After catching up with my old friend, I came to find out what really happened. It seems like Gyarados, named Ganondorf, an evil man from Gyarados Valley, desired the legendary Triforce. Though the Triforce was only told in fairy tales to the children where I come from, I was amazed to find out that it really existed. She told me how she played with things she knew nothing about, and about how Ganondorf tricked the soon-to-be Hero of Time into unlocking the door to the Sacred Realm. I even noticed that Zelda was a little older than I. Last I saw her, she was 4 years younger than me. It was told to me that when Ganondorf went into the Temple of Time and into the Sacred Realm, time jumped ahead in Hyrule 7 years later. Yet only 2 years passed in my land, and in the rest of the world. After the Hero of Time defeated the King of Evil, the hero was granted to either return to the past or to remain in the present time. Since she chose to remain in the present, Zelda jumped ahead of me in age by 4 years. It seems that everyone in Hyrule jumped in age from the rest of the world. But now peace was restored, life resumed in Hyrule. As I made my way down to the desert trail that led to Hyrule, I began to think about whom the legendary Hero of Time was. I was very interested in meeting this man. Princess Zelda never told me his name, but I was going to make it a point this time to finally meet Hyrule's hero. As I turned off the dirt trail and onto Hyrule Field, Hyrule Castle appeared in the distance. Dust and dirt kicked up behind the wheels from my wagon as it creaked along. Then I came closer and closer to the gates of Hyrule Castle. A familiar face appeared to greet me. I pulled back the reins to make the horse come to a complete stop at the front gate, and I realized that the person greeting me was my good friend Princess Zelda. I have been good friends with the royal family ever since my first arrival in Hyrule 6 years ago from Hyrule's annual spring festival. Ever since the first day I met the princess, I have been one of her closest friends. I was even considered part of the royal family. After I climbed down from the perch on the wagon, I ran over to Zelda and hugged her. "Hello, Princess Zelda, my good friend. Yes, it is good to see you. How have you been?" Okay, "Hello, Princess Zelda, my good friend" should be a sentence. And the same with "Yes, it is good to see you. How have you been?" I mean, she's supposed to be answering Princess Zelda's unasked question there. Looking at her, I could tell she was happy to see me. "Oh, it is so good to see you again, my friend. Come, come, father's waiting to see you." Leaving my wagon to be tended by the stable hands, I followed Zelda through the marketplace and to the gates that led to the castle. As we approached the castle gates, I saw some of the guards I had seen in the past few years. Saluting to Princess Zelda and me was the guard named Pirino. I met him a few years back during one of my first visits to Hyrule. He was one of the guards that befriended me the first time I arrived. He smiled a friendly smile as we passed. "It's nice to see you again, Mistress Jenna," he said as he waved. I smiled back. I thought to myself how good it was to be back again. We went through the front gate and made our way towards the palace garden. Upon approaching the gate leading to the garden, another familiar face appeared to greet me. As we walked close, I realized it was the face of Zelda's caretaker, Impa of the Sheikas. Sorry if I'm not saying it right. As I walked over to Impa, she turned to fully face me and a small smile crossed her face. "It's good to see you again, my friend. How's life been treating you?" Impa asked as she put a hand on my shoulder. "Oh, fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. I had to chase some shouldn't say thieves, not thief with an apostrophe S off, on the first night that I was on my way back here. Though after some facing time off, I was able to chase them away with my bow." Okay. Then I made a big grin as I remembered the look on thieves with a V, not an F, face as I rained arrows on them. Yes, if it's supposed to be more than one thing, obviously. Oh, whatever. Well, it seems that with the abilities you possess, you should have no problem keeping your possessions safe. With another smile, Impa gestured for us to go into the garden. This is where I met him, the man that took my heart. As we walked into the garden, I saw a young man with green, with his back facing us, polishing a rather old sword. As I watched him, I had begun to notice something about the sword. It had a rather odd shape on the hilt. The hilt was blue, with the top of the hilt looking like a fish's tail. The sword looked rather strangely familiar. I leaned over to Princess Zelda and asked who the young man was. That is the legendary hero of time. His name is Link. Okay, that's a really bad typo right there for those reading on with me. Zelda replied. My eyes grew as big as saucers as I turned to look back at him. You mean he is the hero of time you told me about? The one who saved Hyrule? Then that must be the legendary Master Sword he's holding? Zelda nodded yes. Just then Link turned to look at us, and with one look at his face, my heart sank into my chest. He was the most gorgeous man I have ever laid eyes on, and at that very moment I fell in love. I would normally read a bit more than this. Well, she would probably read more than this, but seeing that author's note was so long and so tedious, it took up most of the fanfic, I'm just going to stop it here, because she already kind of spoiled in the author's note what happens in the story anyway. They obviously fall in love. They have children. They have wild and crazy sex. And this is supposed to be a self-insert fanfic, although she's trying to say it's not a self-insert fanfic, but it really is. The spelling and grammar could be better, but she already warned us about that, so I'll let her go on that one. Story itself is kind of mediocre so far, and I'm going to assume that it gets even more and more worse. If you guys want to read the rest of it for yourselves, go right ahead. But I will warn you, try to skip reading that author's note, because it'll probably give you a bloody headache like it did to me. This fanfic is a self-insert. I'm not really sure if I should be saying that this person is a Mary Sue per se, because most of the time Mary Sues tend to have like a very erotic name and stuff, and Jenna, I'm sorry, is a very common sounding name. This person is probably not necessarily a Mary Sue, but they probably are conceited and stuff like some of the reviews have said. And seeing that this character is actually supposed to be the author and is based off of the author, and seeing how the author themselves seem to come across as very conceited and full of themselves in the author's note, I think it's fair to say that the person in the story is probably like the author. And if the author's going to crucify me for not reading your story in its entirety, I'm sorry, but how you came across in your author's note alone made me want to continue to read this, because you already told me pretty much what the story is. My opinion of it. I mean, so far from reading it, it's very mediocre. It's choppy, it's mediocre. I can see some of the accusations of why you'd be considered a Mary Sue, seeing your character pops into this story and, falls in love with the main character, although he's supposed to be with Zelda from what I've gathered from the games. But I digress. I'm not going to go into a huge rant like my cousin normally does. I think I went into my huge rant just by reading the bloody author's note, and I do apologize because I did come across as very lunatikish and ass and whatnot, but the story, it just angered me so much. On the FanFic Critic, well, I'm not the FanFic Critic, but I'm Susan. I hope you guys enjoyed the season finale, and even though you didn't get a freak out from the actual story itself, you got a freak out from me. So if in the case that there's another freak out list made, especially one made about me, that will probably be the #1 spot. Right then, I have to check up on my cousins, so I bid you all good night, and see you all in the next season. This author just kept repeating themselves and repeating themselves and repeating themselves and repeating themselves, and it was obnoxious. It's like, we just want to read your stupid story. And here you are, you have like almost 30 minutes of you just rambling, yelling at people about being immature because they don't like your story. And it's like, just shut up and get on with it. No wonder people keep going after you. I'm not sure if the story is still up. I really hope it's not. In fact, a few of the stories that we've revisited for these lost episodes I hope are not up anymore, and they might be. I don't know, because I'm not linking them in the description. If you guys want to Google it and find out yourselves, be my guest, but I'm not. Well, yes, this review was mostly just this author having this over-the-top author's note and me flipping my shit the entire time. Yes, that was practically it. So, that's the final lost episode of FanFic Critic. There's no more after this. Because shortly after I had filmed this episode for Meg, and she was back, you know, more recovered from the final incident of Phase Pistol, and she was, you know, gonna start posting, you know, editing the episodes that, you know, she had filmed. She had filmed a bunch of them before she had started editing them, and I think the last one she was able to edit was episode 212, and that, after that, was when, you know, the bloody laptop crapped out. And by that point, I had mastered learning the Vulcan pinch. Because, you know, editing the episodes back then was a bit more complicated than it is now. You know, she had to convert files and whatnot, because that was like back in, I think it was like around 2014 at that point when, you know, that had happened. Because I think these episodes were like filmed like 2013, but because she had such a backlog and she was, you know, trying to post it once a week, but then the laptop crapped out. So yes, that makes sense. And I think at that point she was just like, you know what, I'm just going to take this as a sign that I need to retire from doing FanFic Critic, and that was that. Till years later when we discovered that we could get the bloody laptop to work again, and then fast forward to now when I was able to actually extract files from it. So, well, this is the final lost episode. There is no more after this, unless you count my series. Which I guess you can kind of count that, but it's like years later. Both of us are obviously older, things have changed. For the better, I feel. You know, I think that we have both grown as people. Our opinions on stuff have definitely changed. So yes. Aside from me being a drunk buffoon in 219, I guess I wasn't too bad, you know, at least I wasn't being, well, there were a couple of things in this episode that I really had to laugh at myself, where I'm like, hey, well, I have a low self-esteem and I don't treat people like crap, and it's like, hello? Most of your time knowing Meg back then, you weren't very nice to her, but I digress. I do feel like I've gotten a lot better. Still need to work on my temper a bit, but, you know, at least it's not to this extreme that it was back then. But I digress. Well, thank you for watching these lost episodes of FanFic Critic. This is the last one. I hope you all enjoyed this short-lived series. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you in the next episode of the actual FanFic Critic. Until then, cheerio.